Hello everyone, and welcome to the 5th installment of Dungeons and Bagels, where we learn how to make the most out of our pen and paper RPGs. Alright, so in the last few topics we talked about NPCs, but now we're going to switch the subject a bit. We're going to go into encounters. Exactly, that's where the fun begins. So, what's an encounter exactly? An encounter is considered anything that's a challenge to the players. It can be a fight, it can be traps, it can be both. It might also be a skill challenge where players will need to, for example, unlock a door before the room gets flooded. Things like that. With encounters, you want to keep your game interesting. You want to keep it varied. Sure, from time to time, maybe the players will face enemies in an open field with a few rocks. You might want to add a few bushes or trees to that to give it variety. But more often than not, you should actually sit down and think about the fight. And beforehand ask you, how am I going to make this interesting? You want to hit your players with nasty little surprises. Nothing too big. You don't want the whole party to die, that's for sure. But you want to switch it up a bit. So actually, for the encounters, a bit of idea on scaling. One of the things you need to take into consideration is the average party level. If you look in the manual for Pathfinder, you will see that the average party levels is described as something for 4 or 5 players in a party. So whenever you're under this number, for example 3 players, you might want to lower the encounter level by 1, or if you go over 5, if you're up to 6, 7 players, you might want to tone it up. Encounter can be defined into many categories. There would be the easy encounters, which is anything under the party level. Average encounters equal to their levels. We start going into the hard encounters when the encounter level is 1 or 2 level higher. And afterwards, very hard 3 or 4 levels. And for some insane fights, go up to 5, maybe 6 tops, because anything over that might be overpowering, unless if you give the party some special tools to deal with the encounter. But how do we exactly calculate the encounter number? It's pretty simple. If you look in the book, there's a table. I think it's page 398 in the Pathfinder role-playing core rulebook. You will see a table with the experience points values of encounters. That's the easy way to calculate it. You add the experience points awarded by the monsters, and the total will give you a total of the encounter level. Here, if you want to see, here's a small sample of what would be some low-level encounters experience points awards. You can take a look at this. And now actually we are going to jump in a simple encounter that I prepared for you. It's a low level encounter, I would say, for a party of level 3 or 4, and it takes place in a tavern, in an inn on the 2nd floor. So a bit of background for this encounter if you ever want to steal it. It's in the Dead Drake's Inn. What happened here is the players in their last mission actually had to stop a traffic of illegal alchemy items. Doing so, of course, they succeeded. They're still there. But they have angered a local band of criminals that were looking to make quite the coin out of this illegal traffic. So what happened now is the players are just relaxing at the inn, but little do they know, the street gang has organized an ambush on them in order to have them killed there in the inn on the 2nd floor. So we're going to move over to the map of this area, and I'm going to go through the details on how to balance it, make it interesting, and also scale it to the party levels and the desired level of challenge. So let's dive straight into that right now. I present to you the Dead Drake's Inn. It's a pretty simple inn, as you can see. Just 3 tables, 3 windows, a door leading to a balcony. Nothing very special. It's just a small place for the party to relax here. But this place is very interesting for encounters because of all the entry points. Alright, so if you look at this, you will see that this map has more than one entry point. You would have the stairs, the door on the balcony, and 3 windows. So already for ambushes, your enemies have way more options than you could expect at first. So let's look into how you could introduce the fight to the players. Alright, so this encounter takes place at the end of the evening. The sun has settled down and player characters are just enjoying a drink or two around the table, chit-chatting about this and that, about the day. You might let them engage in player conversations, have them divide the loot from the past quest. It's really up to you. At this point, once they start settling in, thinking everything is fine and dandy, you may ask a perception check out of them. The first one is to see if they notice the guy on the balcony that passes right in front of the window. The inn is almost empty, actually, at that point. So, it would be opposed to his stealth check, which would be something around the lines of +6 or +7. So, if they do notice him, they see something is up. Another thing they can notice is the innkeeper on the first floor struggling, actually, as he gets disposed of by the other thugs. At that point, if the party notices something is up, they get a surprise round to prepare the battlefield. As you can see, there's tables. They can flip them over and use them as cover. They can try and take cover themselves, because if something is happening on the balcony and on the first floor, they can notice that they're going to get flanked pretty quickly. So at this point, that's how you're going to introduce this encounter. Now let's see at how we're going to balance this. So taking into consideration a party level of level 4, here an encounter level 3 would be an easy encounter. 3 human warriors, 2 human rogues. You have 2 of them come in through the door of the balcony, and 3 of them walking up the stairs, so that way the party ends up being flanked from the start. For the level 4 encounters, we're switching things up a little. First of all, the warriors are now fighters, so a better class with more option. Also, you might want to have them come in through the windows at the top in addition to the balcony. Coming through the window would mean they break the window and shattered glass is now on the ground, so that's a hazard. If you get tripped on that, you should get slashing damage and possibly 1 bleed damage as well until you healed the wound. For the 5th level encounter, considering a party level of 4, we're entering the hard encounters, so you want to add a leader to the group. Tiefling Rogue, for example, level 3. So his sneak attack is 2d6. He's a force to be reckoned with. He can also cast darkness on the area, and he's a good fighter all around. So this adds an extra threat because now they actually have an enemy that's able to pack a good load of damage. And now we're going to move through the final level of this encounter. If we're going to make it an encounter level 6, and we're going to make it very tricky as well. Alright, for the last level, the enemies remain the same. However, what you add is either an explosive charge under the floor installed by one of the enemies, or you can add a fire hazard. You can see I switched all the races of the enemies to Tieflings. And the reason for that is Tieflings can actually fight in darkness. So that way they can benefit from the darkness spell from one another, fight in total darkness. Second thing, Tieflings are resistant to fire with their demonic heritage. They have 5 resist fire, so that way if they do set fire to the inn, themselves, they don't risk as big of a threat as the player characters. So you could rule there for the fire that the heat deals 1d6 fire damage if they actually lit the roof on fire and pieces of it are falling down. You might add a reflex save to lower the fire damage on that. As for the explosive charge, you would have this one sticking under the ground of where they're standing, and it would go off after a few rounds. The enemies would be aware of that, so they would try to evacuate the area. At that point, you could require a reflex save, first of all, to resist part of the blast, and the other one, if they're really in the center of it, a reflex save to grab on, not to fall down to the first floor, because that would cause even more damage. So see, we add a little something sneaky here, in addition to the broken glass that's already there and the ambush. So this keeps your player on the edge for the battle. So as you can see from this past encounter that we just went over, it was way more than just an empty room. It was a room filled with hazard. Broken glass, fire damage, enemies coming in from all directions, tables that could be used as walls and cover, as well as a ramp from where you could throw people down to the first floor to deal damage and get them out of the combat. So, the point I wanted to get to with this video was that it's very important for you to sit down and think about ways that could make the party characters have to design strategies on the go and make their tactical sense work. This combat would not be that dangerous for a fighter when you get down to it, but for a wizard, for example, that's usually in the back line, you would have to tell yourself, where's the back line right now? Enemies are coming from the stairs, enemy from the balcony, enemy from the windows, and I do not want to hug that ramp and get pushed down. At that point, the party has to make sure he stays safe in the middle, so they fight on multiple flanks. So on these notes, I will end today's video. We will have more discussions on encounters, more sample encounters as well. If there's any type of encounter you would like me to go over, feel free to ask so in the comment section. If not, well, I will see you guys next time. Until then, remember, you were born a natural 20. Stay golden, guys.